Good evening. How are we this evening? I see we've got Carol. Hello again, Carol. Surely you're getting a bit tired now. Maybe you've had a nap. I hope so. So, good evening. And for those that didn't see me this afternoon, Happy New Year. We are starting off the first of our Facebook Lives for 2026. Can't get used to saying that yet. Get used to it about September. And the focus this week is going to be on the Toucan stamp set, which, if you did catch the show, it was on New Year's Eve, which does seem a bit of a lifetime ago. And we're just going to be messing about with that stamp set and seeing where we get. It's not on the website yet because I need to sort out a few things on the website and get it sorted. But if you are desperate for it, before I can get it on the website, just drop me a message. Hello, Maureen. So, yes, let's have a little quick look at it. Bear with me. That one, then that one. There we go. So here it is. It's a DL stamp set. It's got a few stamps in there. Although it's got obviously the 3 toucans, the leaves and vines and stuff like that are very, very handy. But the toucans are just, they're a bit of fun. It's a bright, cheerful, and I just thought that after, yay, you made it. Is Evie with you? So yes, I'm just thought, you know, bit of a bright and cheerful one, but also it's a fun one to play with, because if you're a little bit like apprehensive about colouring and stuff like that, it's a nice one to that, because it's a nice bold stamp set. You've got toucans facing different ways. You've also got a funny little saying in there, but you've also got these fabulous like leaves and stuff like that. The little flowers are really handy as well. So it's a nice one for a bit of collaging and stuff like that. And I couldn't resist. There's my toucan in a can. So that's a sardine can, and then I've layered it inside with our little toucan in there. And it's one that it just really simply fun to use. So we'll have a little. I'd love to see one in real life. She'll be in a minute. Right. So Evie will be joining in a minute. Right. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I would love to see in real. I don't know if I've seen one in the zoo. Could I have done? I don't know. Can't remember. Obviously, anybody of a certain age will also remember them as the Guinness bird. But yeah, they're just really cute. So let's have a little play. So I've got a few different things I wanted to do, and I was going to start off by doing a very simple idea with the tunnel book idea. So I have taken some pages out of a book to do this with, but you could do this directly into the middle of a book. So if you were into doing a bit of 3D work, you could open the book up and actually do this idea. But for me demoing, it's going to be easier to do it out of the book. So for this, I'm going to use a toucan. He's the one facing that way. And I've also got some of the leaves. Now I'm being a bit extravagant here and having them each on their acrylic blocks. I just happen to have found all the acrylic blocks, and as I've got a stamping workshop in a few weeks, I don't want to lose them, so I thought if they're here I can use them. Right, because we're working on book page, which is sort of quite busy, I am going to stamp in black just because I need it to stand up against the writing. I am going to colour it a bit as well, but don't get too scared. It's going to be the world's simplest colouring, because I don't do colouring. That's not greatly stamped there because I've gone off the edge of the... Well, that wasn't bad measuring. I'm just going to fill that in. See, because of the way this is, you can get away with sort of a bit of over stamping because it's a jungle. Doesn't matter if it's not lined up perfectly. So there, you can't even. It wouldn't even matter if it was double stamped. Right. So that's the first layer, and I just want to add a splash of colour to it before I do anything else. The reason being, it's easier to do it before we cut it out. So I've got my watercolours. Just give them a little spritz to get them going, and I'm going to go with the sort of mid-green here, and I am only doing a real sort of wash over it so that it's just giving a hint of green. I'm not staying in, I mean the brush is fatter than the leaves, but I just want to add that sort of hint so that when we cut it out the leaves are jumping out, and because we've got those dark lines from the black stamping it will still. And then I'm going to go very, just to add a bit of colour to there, just using my cutting mat as paint palette. Not worrying about on the inside there because I'm doing a tunnel book. I will be cutting that out. Let's just get rid. You could use ink for this, but I've got. You found us, Amanda. You found us. Okay, I used the highlight thing. I don't know if that works. Right, let that dry a little bit before I do anything, and then we're going to move on to the next one. So, going to swap up to the next size of leaf. Again, stamping in black, and I'm going to come in a bit with this one because, and sort of twist it round a little bit. The idea that we're looking into the jungle. Try not to do it too star-shaped. So that the idea of these vines all growing inwards like that. Although it's going to be hidden, I will just, yeah, I think that's okay. And I'm going to come in with a sort of a mix of the two greens. And again, just sort of loosely following the stamp design, just very loosely. Because it's watercolour, you see you can still make out the black lines. But it means if I go over the edge very slightly, doesn't matter when I'm cutting out if I leave an edge to it, or I don't even have to cut it all out. Because if you imagine in the jungle looking through, you're not going to see distinctive leaves anyway. It's going to be all mishmash, jungly, isn't it? Jungly. That's. I'm not going to add any colour to the background of that yet. Right. Next layer, I'm going to come in with this very small leaf, and I'm just going to sort of fill it, and I'm not worried too much about where this is going because this one's not being cut out, so I just want to fill in there, making sure that no matter where I cut out, we're going to see a bit of that foliage. And again, we're just going to add some sort of almost blobs where those are, so that they've got quite sort of thickish paint on these. And then I'll do a wash over the background so that it's all green. So you could even do sort of blobs of green and then over stamp this over the top of it. But it's a bit easier just to... See, that's making it pop out of the book page. I mean, you know, you really don't need to be able to paint here as long as you can sort of smear some paint around. Okay, and then I'm going to make it quite watery, just to sort of fill in the background and just take away some of that creamy white, so it's got that thicker density of jungle. And also by having the wet there, I mean, book pages are very absorbent, so you're not going to get the flowing you would have maybe on a stamping card. Versafine, Claire Nocturne, or Nocturne, on the black ink. Only recently got the black in that. I normally avoid using the black. I tend to use the grey or my current favourite, Portobello, which is like a dark green, sort of, well, it's mushroom, I suppose. But for this, you really want the black. So I've got my layers there. So that's getting nothing done to it. Go to this one first. The reason we let it dry a little bit is because it will be very delicate while it's damp, because we're talking book page here. You don't have to use book page for this, but I kind of like the extra interest you get. And you really, if you're using book page, your stamping and your colouring can be very crude, and it will still have lots of interest. So if you're the worst stamper in the world and the worst colourer in the world, because you're using book page, it will still work really nicely, because I'm not having to cut these leaves out perfectly by any stretch of the imagination. I'm almost implying the shapes of them. And I'm still getting a real interesting overgrown look. Okay, around there. Artistic license on trailing vines. Okay, first layer. Done. So you can see we're starting to look in. Next layer. And at this point, you see, oh, it's slightly off. If you want to add more leaves, you can do it at this point, or you can cheat and offset. I'm going to cheat and offset. Okay, I can trim those bits away in a minute. So, with this sort of, I thought I said hummingbird then, but it doesn't. It was something else, and it's just. Now, where the leaves are really close together, because if I cut across that, it will look a little bit perfect. I'm actually going to do some tearing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the bulk first, because that's going to make it a little bit easier, and take it to where I roughly want it, and then untidy it with a bit of tearing, because normally we'd say tidying it up, but we're going to do a little bit of untidying, just because a torn edge is so much nicer for this sort of thing than a cut edge. I am also going to take away some of the bits of paper in between the fronds of the leaves. I will do that with scissors though, just to give them a little bit of potential movement, a little bit more interest, and also it means that they will be more see-through-y. It's not a word. But you'll be able to see through the gaps of them a little bit more so. And again, I'm not following the leaves too perfectly. I'm just cutting out some little triangles just to give that illusion of the fronds of these leaves. And it means that when it's in place, you can curl them and make them look more like real leaves. Okay, just snipping out. And if you feel when you've layered this up that you need to add a green wash to this page as well, you can do, but I'll have a look and see when I've done this bit. The reason I didn't do it at this stage was I knew I wanted to cut these, and if I'd have wet the paper, it would have been quite difficult. If you were doing it at home, you can obviously wait for things to dry because you've not got people watching you live. So just snipping out just some little bits. Doesn't have to be all of them. It just to trick the mind into thinking that each of these leaves is more three-dimensional than it is. Okay, just I might do a tiny little wash in a minute. And up here, just triangles out. Because we've been very loose with how we've watercoloured, the triangles are just enough to make you think that that leaf is cut out almost properly. Okay, try to adjust the overhead camera so I didn't have to lean forward as much as I do. Yeah, so it's just that bit there. Okay. Let's have a look how that's looking. Yeah, I might just add a very quick wash. So just give that a little spritz, run it off there. And again, it just adds a little bit more interest, hides any imperfections in your cutting. But by doing it as just a wash, it's not distracting from the intensity of the colour around the leaves. Yoga ran late, that's allowed. And hi Kelly, how are you? Right, so that's that layer, and then that goes over there. And you see we're starting to get this tunnel. Now, to make this more effective, you want to build this up. Now, this is only on book page, so it's a bit floppy. So if I was to use foam pads, I would have to be quite generous with them so that it's going to be supported. So only do it with foam pads if you've got, you know, cheap ones. Don't use your expensive acid-free and all of that for something like this. And also, when I'm doing something like this, sometimes one layer of foam pads isn't quite enough. You want a little bit more, which is why I would tend to use offcuts of card or something like that. And when I say card, I mean like cardboard boxes. If you've got a big thick cardboard box, cut some squares off that and glue them in. Come on. Come on, off you come. No, I don't mean off the page. It's not going to stick to the book, but will stick to me. Okay. And also, I know I need to trim this one down, but I'm not going to do it yet. I'm going to do it once it's stuck in place. Because if I do it now, and then when I'm sticking it down, I move slightly, it might be in the wrong place, and then I'm just going to, you know, get frustrated. So I don't need to trim it down until it's stuck in place. So I need to get the backing off of that one. Come on. First lot came off nice and easy. Where's my awl? I haven't got one. I mean, I haven't got an awl. Must be one. Oh, I can't be rummaging in my basket. There we go. My basket is a thing of doom. Right. So that's enough just to show. So position that where you want it. Then we're going to do the same with this one. We're just going to put, you would want more foam pads on than this, but I'm just for speed going to just put a couple on. Okay, come on. This is why I don't use foam pads, and I generally use glue and cardboard. Right, so this is what I was saying about I'm not worrying about trimming anything until this one's in place. So decide, just hover it above where you want it. I think about there is fine. Now I can trim those back layers. And you just lift away very slightly and trim away the bits. And that way I'm not trimming and then thinking, oh, that's in the wrong place. So you've got that dimension, but this is all about the toucans. So let's add the toucan now. And let's make him nice and bright. So I have got piece of mop-up card here that's got some nice bright orange on it. So that's what I'm wanting. And I want that to tie in with his beak. So, and his throaty bit. So positioning your stamp so that that falls in that orange bit. Press it down firmly because we want the sharp black on this. So now you see he's got his lovely beak and he's going to ping out. Then we're going to cut him out. Sometimes I was with his little perch using a real small stick and gluing it on to add extra interest. But because I don't want that to be orange, I am going to just give it a little halfway through and was wondering if I'm doing it right. I hope I'm showing you the right way because you know me, I'm not usually the most I don't always do things the conventional way, I think is what I'm trying to say. There we go, snip that bit. So at the moment that branch he's sitting on is orange and I don't want that to be orange, I want it to be brown, or certainly I want it to be a different colour so it makes him look, I mean his beak looks fab as it is, but I just want to make that bit a bit better. There's my brown there. This is a really handy little watercolour set. It was only cheap, but it's just enough. It doesn't take up very much room. It's just enough to give you, because you can mix your colours and things. I just want a little bit of brown on his branch, just to take away the orangeness of it. See, brown will mix with the orange anyway. I can't even remember what this orange was. Right, there he is. And then I'm going to decide which layer I want him on. Do I want him behind? I don't want him on the top there. I mean, it works, but it's not as interesting. So do I put him between the first and second layer? That looks quite nice. Or do I put him right in there? I think he gets a little bit lost in there. So I'm going to put him in between these layers. Now, if you've built your layers up more than I have for speed here, where are they from? That'll give you a clue. Just taunt internet. You probably get them off Amazon, but just look around because they're not expensive. You don't need fancy ones. So if you've built your layers up more than I have, always stick him to the back of the layer so he has another dimension to him. If you stuck him flat onto that one, he's on that layer. But if you stick him on the back of that, you're almost creating an additional layer. So I haven't built this up as much as I would normally. So I'm going to stick him there. If you need to put him on a foam pad and build him up, you can do. But how cute does that look? And it's got such dimension, really nice in journal pages or on cards, but there you go. So that's that one. Okay, first one. Right, next one. I need, where's my bigger piece of card? Okay, we're going to do like a little simple collage. And I saw somebody talking about the 3-3 rule, and I'm like, what's that? And basically, it talks about a nice way of sort of guaranteeing a nice collagey background without it being overpowering. Use them as a base to create on. Dried leaves, dried leaves are a little bit harder to work with because they're, as you say, they're a bit crunchy. So you might want to sort of glue them down onto a paper fairly flat, because if you try to stamp directly onto them, they're going to crumple. My preserved ones, which I soaked with the glycerin, they're stampable on, but we are going to do some stamping onto a skeleton leaf in a minute. Right, so 3-3 rule is you want 3 neutral papers. So I'm going with 2 different types of book page and some sheet music, and you just want 1 piece of each. Okay, so, and I'm sort of going to tear rough rectangles. Okay, 1, 2, and then the third one. And I am, I might go with that table side. I'm going to go with rough rectangles. Okay. One, 2, 3. Yeah, don't want to lose them. And then you just glue them down. Okay, 1. 2. And 3. Okay, so not too busy. Then you want 3 pieces from a similar palette. So blues, greens, whatever. Now I happen to have these books, and they are ideally all within the same palette, because there's a teal one, there's a blue one, I thought teal because we're doing our little toucan. So I want 3 pieces of this. So they don't have to be from the same piece of paper. So I'm going to have 1, 2, and 3. Now this time I am going to cut it with my trimmer, because I want these fairly straight, and I want them slightly different sizes. So 1, you watch this, they'll all come out pretty much the same size. 2, and I'm going to go a bit skinnier on this one, but longer. So they're all different sizes, but they're from the same palette. So that could be done with your distress inks. You could ink and stencil. Okay, and then we're going to glue these on. And again, I'm not overthinking this. I'm not going, I'm not messing about with where they're going. I'm just plonking them down. And then last one. You see, I've got a nice, interesting background there without too much effort. So now we're going to do another toucan to go on there. I'm going to just do him in black and white. Okay. Let me just find a bit of white card to stamp him on. Will he fit on that one? Okay. And we're going to add the words to this as well. So just in black and white, he looks really cool. And I'm also gonna, where's my stamps? Oh, under there. There they are. Okay. So, right, I've lost the toucan word. Oh, there it is. So I want toucan. And will that fit on there? I think it will. Okay. So quickly cut him out, very quickly. Round we go. So no colour on him this time, because there's enough colour in the background. I just don't want to introduce any more colour to that background. When cutting out something stamped in black, make sure you've dried it so you don't get fingerprints. But I'm going to cut that fingerprint out so it's not the end of the world. So there he goes round his foot. Oh. And then we'll add our words. And to make them stand out, you could put them onto a little bit of black. Have a look at them and decide whether they need. I do think they're going to need a little bit of black. So I've got some little offcuts of black here. Going back to using what you have, I have a crow stamp. Yes, a crow stamp would work as well. The reason I like the Toucan for the first one is the splash of colour, but for this, where you're not using any colour, yeah, a crow stamp would work really nicely. Obviously, this saying wouldn't necessarily, and we all know what goes with crows. What's one crow called? That's right, attempted murder. So I'm just matting this onto a little bit of black. So it says a party better than one, and in case you're wondering why that doesn't make sense, because I haven't got the Toucan on it yet. I love the font of this. So Toucan party better than one, and then just decide where you're going to glue everything, sort out his beak. Okay, blob of glue, and it's a very different look to the first one we did, and quite muted with those colours. But you imagine you did this with shades of orange paper, it just, and instead of squares you did circles. I couldn't find my circle dies, they're buried, otherwise I would have done. So there you go, very, very simple idea, the 3-3 rule. Right, next, what's next on my list? Leaf. That's all it says, leaf. But I know what I mean. So, come here. The leaf's running away from me. Leaf. I want a bit of scrap paper. Let's use a piece of book page. Yeah, waiting for ink to dry is not one of my strengths. Okay, let's, but it doesn't matter for what I'm about to do. So I'm coming in with VersaFine Clair in green. This ink pad's had more use with this set of stamps than I think I've done at all. And then I'm going to just add in a little bit of this Caribbean blue as well, just to give that leaf a bit of colour. Come in with clear embossing powder while the ink is still wet. Just scoop up the end there. Okay, put that back in the pot. I always find that amazing. I've used this pot loads, but still when I'm tipping it back in, I'm struggling to get it in because there's quite a lot. I'm going to grab another piece of paper because that's now got embossing powder on and I don't want this to stick. So your leaf is very delicate. Yeah, it would work really well on a journal page, your 3-3 rule. It just breaks up the surface for you. You know that blankness when you're looking at things. Now this will be sticking to this paper at the moment. So just warm it very slightly and ease it up. If it's sticking, just warm it, okay? So we've now got our leaf is coloured. Right, we're going to come in with that one and this one, I think, in black, stamp on to the leaf. Before you go too far, sprinkle on the embossing powder. Don't have to heat set it yet, just need to get it on. Okay, and heat set those 2, 3, can't count. Now also, don't worry if the clear powder has stuck elsewhere on the leaf. It's not like we're stamping onto black card and it's going to matter that there's specks of clear. They're just going to meld in with the other clear anyway. But we're just wanting to highlight those leaves a little bit more. Don't know if you can see them. I'll move it onto white in a minute. And I'm also going to do a couple. Hang on. Let me just get this stamp stuck to his block. I always do that. I ink before I make sure that they're stuck to their block. Then pick them up and then I'm all covered in ink. So I'm just adding a little bit more interest to this leaf. Okay, back in the pot. Now this sheet is quite interesting because it's got a bit of embossing and stuff, so this is the sort of piece of paper you would keep. So just reheat it, making sure any embossing powder is now melted. Keep it warm so that I can lift it up. Now you see how it's stuck there? Don't panic, just warm it again so it melts it and then you can lift it away. If you need to use tweezers, if you haven't got heat resistant fingers. Now if I come in with, how lovely does that look? Because you've got all that interest there, you've got that colour, and then we're just going to add our toucan, and we're going to swap with our toucan to be going the other way this time. So I'm taking that toucan off and bringing this toucan in, and we are going to stamp and emboss him just to make him ping a little bit more. And do you know what? I'm going to use that book page just for a bit of interest. I might add some colour to his beak in a minute, I haven't decided. Stop putting your card in your... Sometimes when you're stamping on book page, the ink does dry really quickly. So don't worry if you've done a blank, with a VersaFine Claire, and it's not grabbed the embossing powder. It's not the end of the world. It just, what you have got will just intensify him a little bit. In this situation, it's just to make him stand out a little bit more. Okay, see, he just stands out a little bit more. I am going to add a splash of colour to his beak, just because I can. So, and I was looking at toucans and they can be all sorts of different colours. Again, I'm not worrying too much about the lines because I am going to cut him out, but it just gives him a little bit of oomph. Again, I'm going to just do his branch. Just with a bit of brown there. And again, because we have embossed this, the colouring and everything is just really easy. because we can't go over the lines because they're embossed. We're going to cut him out so it doesn't matter. And it's just such a nice shape to cut out because you've got his big beak. You know, there's not really a huge amount of fiddliness to him, so he's a nice one to cut out. And I've probably cut him out more than I haven't, just because it is so nice to... He'd be good for, you know, the out-of-the-box die cutting and things like that as well. How are we doing on time? Good gracious me. Right, here we go. Only trouble when you're using book page like this and you've embossed it, can you see? It goes a bit curly. So it means we're going to have to be quite generous with our glue when we're gluing this down. So, honestly, one day I'll keep a piece of white card white. So, the glue dries clear so it doesn't matter. I'm going to put a big generous amount there. Okay. Then I'm going to bring my leaf in, take the acetate or the bag that the stamp was in and use that to press the leaf right down into it. The glue dries clear so it won't matter. We just want to make sure that that leaf is well and truly down. Okay. And you see as soon as you get it onto the white how lovely that embossing and stamping onto it looks. So much nicer than just leaving the stamp plain. The stamp, the leaf. Okay, and I am applying glue all over him because he's on book page. I want to make sure he doesn't curl up. It's like those fish, the passionate fish. Do you remember them? You used to get them in your Christmas cracker. So I'm going to bring the branch to the edge there. And again, come in with your bit of acetate and press it down. Because obviously there's going to be glue coming through from the leaf as well. And how cute is that? Again, you could add your sentiment there or just leave it fairly plain. So that's the stamping, embossing onto a skeleton leaf to create your background. But again, if you were using dried leaves for that, you might find they'd go a little bit crunchy. So maybe rub a little bit of glycerin into them to soften them. It might absorb into them. It would if it was skin, and a leaf's not that different. Okay. Panel. So I have got... One of the things I love about this stamp set is all these little tiny stamps for collaging. So I've got some flowers there, I've got the leaves. So I'm going to come in with the jungly leaf. What didn't I do? Didn't clean it. And I'm going to stamp randomly on and off the panel. If I can't fit my stamp in, I don't stamp it because I want space around it. I don't want these to overlap. Okay, happy with that. Now I'm going to go to this stamp. Again, why did I not wait for him to be stuck to his block? And I'm just going to fill in some of the gaps. Now I have got a couple of little gaps there, and that might fit in there. Just don't want to overlap things. Yep, happy with that. So I've now got a nice jungly panel. That's going to get stuck onto there. And I would again cut out my toucan and add him offset to there. But let's say I want to be lazy and I don't want to keep cutting out the toucan, but I want the illusion that I'm cutting out the toucan. So let's prepare this. Right, first things first, we are going to stamp and emboss our toucan. Actually, I'm not going to emboss him, I'm just going to stamp him. Okay. And I am going to, don't need to do all of him, I just need his head. I need a mask of him. But I don't need all of it, I just need that bit. I'm going to put that over the top there. Then my masking tape. Where was that earlier? I was looking for that earlier, couldn't find it. So I'm going to use that to hold that toucan down. Okay, it doesn't have to be held down perfectly. I just need him roughly in place. And we're going to create a box around him. I'm going to go across his beak there. So it's going to hold him down there and create this interesting panel. Okay. Now we're going to grab our ink again. And we're just going to stamp randomly across everything, doesn't matter. Across the toucan, doesn't matter. I just don't want to go beyond the masking tape. Now, if you think you might accidentally go beyond the masking tape, just put some extra paper there or something like that. Okay. And I'm also going to, where's those little flowers? What have I got flowery wise? Flower colour. Pink raspberry, that'll do. I do have nice purple VersaFine Clair, but I don't know where I've put it. But this time I am overlapping. I want this to be quite busy. But I just want to make sure I don't go outside of that masking tape. Okay. And that one, what other colour have I got? I've got that Caribbean blue. Don't know if that's going to be bright enough. Oh yeah, it's quite nice. So this idea of randomness, remember what I always say, give yourself an element of control with the randomness. So my element of control here is I've got stuff masked off. No matter how busy I go, there is going to be voids of stuff. Okay. So I'm making it nice and busy. There we go. Tiny bit more there. So it looks chaotic. I mean, you could even come in with, you know, the word toucan as well. But you want it to be fairly busy and almost solid with stamping in there. If you find it's not solid enough, you could come in and add some ink in there as well. And then all you're going to do is take your masking tape away. Lift your mask away, and now you've got your little toucan sitting in amongst his nice little chaotic panel. If you wanted to add a black line to the panel, you could do, but you don't have to. You can just leave it like that, and it's, you know, he's standing out from there because he's black and white, and then you've got all that colour behind. And even though that was busy, crazy stamping, how effective does that look with all those colours? It's got that jungly feel just from over stamping everything. I've not even coloured those flowers in. So, you know, don't be afraid of using stamps like that and really going to town with them and really building them up, because if you've got a small panel of it, it's not going to be too overpowering. And also having him masked off and also having his beak sticking out from there as well as the bit there is a really effective way. Right. Hi Sarah, how are you? Right. What am I doing? Okay, what have we got? About 5 minutes. Oh, it's cold, it's gone cold, it's gone cold. Right. So let's do that. Okay, so this is one of my like really bright mop-uppy sheets. This was from ages ago. Okay, and we're going to stamp him right in the middle there. I mean, it just looks fab just like that, doesn't it? But I am going to add a couple of these just up here, I think. Yeah, that'll do. Don't want too much there. Do I want, no. Might add a little bit down here, just so he's not hovering. Yeah, that'll be fine. Come around the bottom here as well. I might trim that down in a minute. I just don't want him to be hovering in nowhere. Yep, happy with that. Right. At the top here, I'm going to start tearing, and I'm tearing towards myself so that the white edge is on there. When I get to the toucan beak, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to cut around Mr. Toucan's beak until I join back up where I was tearing. Now, I'm going to turn round this way so that I don't accidentally slip and tear his beak off. And this time I'm going to, hang on, I've got to get this right. No, I don't want the white edge, so I'm going to pull away. Okay, and I'm going to keep going until I get to the bottom. So now you can see he looks like he's fallen out of the edge of that piece of paper. And I think we'll come on to some book page. Put the lid on that before I put my hand in it. Yeah, I might trim that down in a minute. Let's get it glued in place and then I can trim in a minute. That wasn't my glue one. 'Tis now. Okay, so don't forget to get a bit of glue on his beaky beak. And I'm going to line that up so that it's hiding that column. See there, it's in 2 columns and I find that quite distracting. So I'm going to line that up like that. Make sure his beak is, and then I'm going to come in with my trimmer, which please note is still clean-ish. Okay, and we're going to line up there and trim. I'm going to go across the bottom there. I'm going to leave a little bit off that last leaf, but not all of it. Okay, going to take that edge off and across the top there. I don't know whether I want some of those leaves at the bottom there. So do you know, as I'm undecided, there's two ways you can see whether this is going to work, whether this is going to be what you want. One is grab the acetate and just position that there and say, yeah, actually I think that is going to work. Or another way, especially if you're working on something like book page with a coloured ink, which the acetate wouldn't show you a colour, is stamp on a bit of scrap just like two little leaves like that, just sort of roughly tear them and then position it there and decide whether you think that is what you want. And I do think I want that, so I could cheat and I could stick those on, or I could be brave and stamp onto that. But before I do that, I am going to cut the black, because then I can put my trimmer away. Black, black, black. Oh, I bet I haven't got a big enough bit of black. No, I've got blue. I got black. Got black. Eek. Because you mat it, it always looks better. Finishes things off. Okay, so just slide that under there, trim that down. That's about right. What glue do I use? Bear with me one moment while I find it. That was B&M's. Basically, cheap and cheerful PVA glue. But what I do is I pour it out into a pot and I leave it out in the air so that a lot of the moisture evaporates and it gets stickier and stickier and stickier. If you feel that it's going too dry, you can put a plastic bag or a bit of cling film over it, or one of those plastic lids. Don't put out as much as I do, but it lasts days out in the air. It really does. It's absolutely crazy how long it lasts, and it just gets stickier and stickier and stickier. I normally have those cheesecake pots, these ones, and Pringles lids go on the top of those if you do need to save it, but just don't put too much out. Yeah, I think that just finishes it off in that corner. I don't think I want one in the top corner. Then a bit of glue. The reason I stopped using other glue was we used to have our beautiful, lovely acrylic glue, and it was super good and super strong and everything. But it just started getting really, really expensive. The base material went stupidly expensive and I couldn't justify it for the amount, and I didn't want to be frugal with glue. So that's when I went back to PVA. How cute does that look? Nice, bright, cheerful and warm, and very, very simple. And again, you don't have to be colouring him in. If you wanted to add a little bit of green to the leaves, you probably could. It would probably get away with it. Let's try. This is where I always regret this. Okay, so, oh, I've just looked at the time. Right, very, very quickly, I'll add a splash of green to these leaves. I think it might look really nice. Just a hint. So just like we did right on the tunnel book, nothing fancy, just... The reason I think I can get away with putting the green on is it's not too red, the colour underneath. If it was too red, you might find your leaves would go a little bit too brown. Also, the base colour is well dry, so I'm layering this Well, that's just giving it a bit of extra. So again, nothing fancy, just a little bit of colour, and again, tiny bit here. I kind of like that effect of the very loose painting on the book page right at the start. There you go. So what have we done? Quite a bit. Nice little panel, our stampy, that, and then where we started, our tunnel book. So not bad for an hour's work there. So, hang on. That one. Hi. always surprise myself that works. So, I hope you've enjoyed that. Nice little messing about there with the Toucan stamp. Next week, we will probably do either the Dovecot or Dudley Does Spring. Depends how the weather is, whether I feel that we need to do spring. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed that. I will download it and upload it to YouTube for those that want to catch it later or watch it on the big screen. But in the meantime, keep warm, and I will see you same time, same place next week. Hang on, got to find the right button, not that one. Not that one, that one, rightio. See, I'm clever. So I will see you same time, same place next week, and take care.